It's another human first AI marketing podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague at Avenue 9. You can find us at avenue9.com, where we're doing all kinds of human first things with marketing. My guest this week is a very special guest. He had me on his podcast called Conversations with Xena, his AI that he has conversations with. And I was interviewed by Xena. You should check that out as well. David Espindola is at davidespindola.com. His business, Brainius, is at brainius.com. He is an AI futurist, strategist, a speaker, and an author. We're going to talk about a couple of the books. Number one, Soulful, You in the Future of Artificial Intelligence. And David, welcome to the show. That's my first question. Is, I guess, if you bring up the word soul, it becomes interesting in whether you think AI will ever have one, or what the role of humanity is in the future of artificial intelligence. So what's your take?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, Mike, for having me on your show. It was a pleasure having you on our podcast. So always fun speaking with you. When I wrote the book, I was trying to figure out what would be the right title for the book. And I was trying to capture this juxtaposition of the human side of things and the AI side of things. Because I believe we as humans, we have different kinds of intelligence. We have analytical capabilities. We have the ability to think and to use our emotions also to balance things, where AI is just 100% analytical. It doesn't have any emotions. So there's a distinct difference between human intelligence and artificial intelligence. And that's what I try to capture in the book, because what I'm interested in is how can we collaborate effectively with these intelligent machines, right? What can we bring to the table that the machines can't bring to the table? And what skills do we need to learn in order to be effective in collaborating with the machine? So that was the gist of what I wanted to capture in the book.
I love that, and I can't wait to dig into it here in this episode. But I have one tough question for you first. We're going to start with a banger, which
Let's
is, you
go.
named your AI Xena. Are you worried about people anthropomorphizing AI? And you're kind of leaning into that with conversations with an AI co-host in your podcast. I think people do mistake the personality of AI for intelligence, consciousness, or soulfulness sometimes. Are you worried about that at all? Or how do you think about those differences?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I captured that in the book as well. I talk about the fact that we need to be careful. So I do it with Xena sort of tongue in cheek, and it's all fun. And I am as transparent as I possibly can be about, this is just a machine. This is not a human being. Don't think that these agents, AI assistants, will have any kind of sentience or the ability to have empathy or relate to you. It all sounds human. They're able to mimic human emotions extremely well. But we need to draw that line and understand that there is a difference between talking to a machine and talking to a human being. So I captured that in the book. I am as transparent as I possibly can be about that. But at the same time, it's sort of fun, right? I think talking to Xena models, they're becoming so good. The sound is just fantastic. And
Yeah.
it's at a point now where you can't really distinguish between a AI voice and a human voice. It sounds like you're talking to a human being, which is fun, but it can be dangerous sometimes. So we need to be aware of where we need to draw the line.
Yeah, so let's jump into that a little bit, because I've been working a lot on this too. I'm also writing a book with the same title as this podcast and stuff that'll come out here soon. And I feel like there is a lot of confusion around this, mostly because the way AI works is different than the way traditional software programs have worked. That was, to me, fairly obvious that, like, Microsoft Word doesn't have any intention. It doesn't care. It's not trying to be liked. It's just doing what it was programmed to do. If it gives you a wrong result or a bad output, it's because you put a bad input in there, and it did exactly what it was programmed to do.
Yeah.
AI is a little bit different. And so I think sometimes there are good analogies, like an AI assistant or training it like an intern and giving it context and background about your company and stuff like that. But then that leans into that dangerousness of, well, it's not actually an intern. Doesn't have hours or human rights or things like that. So we need to also understand the difference. How do you go back and forth between these things? And where does the analogy break down?
I think AI is going to be a very effective assistant to any task that you perform as a professional or even in our personal lives. The capabilities of AI are just astounding. I think we ought to lean in and learn about how to work with these machines, leverage their capabilities, but at the same time, we need to be aware of the dangers, right? We need to be aware of the fact that these AI agents can be very convincing, but they don't always know the answer to everything. We all know about hallucinations where AI just makes stuff up and it shows you the answer with such level of confidence that you think it knows what it's
Mm.
talking about, right? But you got to be careful. And so I think the key is to find the balance. Leverage AI for what it's good at, but you need to be the final judge as to whether what AI is producing is correct, is effective. If you think about organizations that are using AI, one of the things that I try to recommend to my clients is make sure that your AI has the right context, meaning it knows about your business, it knows about your products, it knows about your culture. And the more specialized that AI becomes, the less the probability that it will hallucinate and that it will be effective in conveying the message that you want AI to convey. The danger is that people just jump into AI. I think the classic example is employees that may be using ChatGPT, just the generic free version, asking it to put together an email to send to a customer, just copy, paste, and send it, right? Because it's so easy to do that. I think that's dangerous. You need to really review the output from AI. You need to be the human in the loop that's going to judge whether that email has the right message, has the right wording. Is it coming across as something that your company would actually say? Or is it coming across as just some generic AI thing that your customers are not going to appreciate? So that judgment has to be the human in the loop. Eventually, as these agentic AI capabilities increase, these agentic AIs are going to become very good at portraying the right voice, the right culture, the right product knowledge, but you need to provide the context to it. You need to train it. You need to have AI agents that are very specialized and know you very well. And that's where I think this technology is going.
Yeah, I think I would highlight that because I named the show the Human First AI marketing show. It's actually human last and human in the middle too. And I think sometimes you use the phrase human in the loop, which I hear a lot too, is not just having somebody in the loop peeking over the corner, seeing what's going. It's really at this point a lot of hands on work. You have to do that context first. You have to be monitoring the stuff in the middle, making sure processes are going, that you're contributing and it's going the right way. And then also that final review on whatever output. And I think we've done a good job so far of talking about the individual, but since you're an AI strategist and speaker, I wanted to zoom out a little bit for our business owners or leaders. The strategies for AI, I think, are fascinating too. And people are making a lot of misconceptions, or I guess it's just the way humans work. They're kind of either looking at low lying fruit and they're just like picking up easy wins, like you said, write this email and we'll just not worry about it.
Mhm.
Or they're trying to go too big and they're like, we're going to rebrand and automate everything. And I'm going to make money while I sleep. And it may take us all year, invest hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars, but this is going to be the AI future today. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. So, can you
Mhm.
talk about healthy AI strategies for businesses and where it can make an impact, or where AI is going to be better than our human workforce in the future or now?
Yeah. So I finished a project with the US Small Business Administration about 6 months ago, and we were trying to understand the state of AI in the small business ecosystem. And what we found is that most small and medium sized businesses are still struggling with understanding where they can leverage AI. They don't know where to start. They're concerned about AI disrupting their business. They're concerned about not having enough knowledge and technical capabilities to deploy AI effectively. They're concerned about cybersecurity. So there's still a lot of uncertainty, a lot of worries in the small and medium sized business world, which I appreciate. But I think one thing that was surprising to me is that even the basic understanding is still lacking. So I
Mm,
think there needs to be a lot more education in general. So businesses need to learn as much as they possibly can, as fast as they possibly can, try to leverage employees that are perhaps one step ahead of the other employees and have that person be a champion for AI within the organization, put together formal education processes and programs, come up with the right policies and procedures so that people are following the guidelines that you want to provide to those employees so that they don't go out and send out the email from AI that doesn't have your culture, your knowledge, your capabilities. And so there's still a lot of work to be done. And the one thing that I would recommend, my number one advice is know what problem you're trying to solve and
mm.
prioritize the problems that you're trying to solve. And there are some problems that AI is a perfect fit for, and there are some other problems that it's just not. You can't just force fit AI into solving everything. And so I think you need to be very selective and you need to be very good at prioritizing what are the most effective ways of employing AI in the business, whether it's to improve customer service, automate some business processes, maybe it's on the security side, detecting fraud. There are a ton of different use cases out there, and you got to figure out which ones are relevant to your business.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. That's what I was going to highlight too, is that for me, the answer is always it depends in life. But I think it depends on the industry. And like you said, the problem you're trying to solve and what business you're competing in. Because if you have a ton of data, if you're selling millions of items on e commerce, you can do a lot with predictive analytics and marketing automation and all kinds of cool AI tech and tools, machine learning algorithms, adaptive and predictive content, all kinds of cool things. If you're selling a few major roofing contracts that are $1 million each to some enterprise organizations, there's probably not a whole lot that AI can do to help you sell more of those items. There's basic stuff, there's productivity things, there's efficiencies that can be gained, but I don't know that you're really going to move the needle on like, oh, now we can do 100 more government contracts because we have AI. If you're in a large services or a large enterprise sale,
Yeah.
is that fair?
Yeah, so I don't know if you've heard of this framework, makers, shapers, and takers. So basically, the idea is that if you are a maker, you are spending a significant amount of money on research and development. You are taking a lot of risk. You're putting everything into AI because that's your future. Not too many companies fall in that category. There's only a few companies that are ready to have the risk tolerance and investment capabilities to become a maker. Then you have takers and shapers. Let's start with takers. So takers are the ones that they are not going to use AI as a competitive advantage, but they need to keep up with the market. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to take whatever AI capabilities the vendors of the tools that they are already using are providing to them, right? So whether you use Microsoft, you're going to use Copilot. If you're using Google as your main infrastructure in terms of applications, you're going to use Google's Gemini and so on and so forth. So you're basically just keeping up with the industry. And then you have the shapers, and that's where it gets more interesting because as a shaper, you have a wide spectrum of possibilities there. You can start with being good at prompt engineering. Maybe you can use RAG, and then you can get into fine tuning, start developing agents. So there's a whole spectrum of possibilities if you decide to be a shaper, which is the middle ground between being a maker and a taker. So if you just start by deciding what you are, whether you fit in those three categories, that's already a huge step that most companies should take the time to just think through that.
Yeah, I like that. And I think the one that's interesting that people don't want to go for, there's so much hype around AI. The one that doesn't get mentioned is maybe you just sit back and see how it shakes out. Like,
Mhm.
if you're an enterprise organization, you got to compete with Google. If you're Google, Meta, OpenAI, Microsoft, you got to be going all in. This
Mhm.
is the future
Yeah.
of your company is on the line. Put it all into AI, pick one, put it on black, hope you win. I think it's that big. The small businesses I see as a chance to do something creative, to get an edge. There's a market here. And so if you can be flexible and pivot and you're not making huge investments, but you can make little tiny shifts to get ahead of your competition, great. But I think the one that people miss is this middle ground of there's a lot of good, solid businesses out there that are just, I mentioned roofing, but maybe they're making cabinets or they're selling booths to restaurants and stuff that I've worked with in the past, or garage door manufacturers. You're gonna be okay. Garage door manufacturing is not gonna get disrupted at a crazy amount by AI. Maybe you just learn a little bit. If a tool is huge, you're going to hear about it. You don't need to dive into AI forums, disrupt your whole business, and break your sales and marketing funnels trying crazy stuff. Is like, just take the obvious tools, take the obvious wins, use Copilot that's already released in your Microsoft, or use Gemini because it's already in your Google workspace. And just don't be a laggard, but just keep pace with the mainstream, I think is a message that people don't hear enough.
Yeah, that's the taker approach. And it's an absolutely fine strategy for a lot of companies. So, like you said, you don't have to be on the leading edge. Just keep up with what's going on, leverage the tools that your vendors are providing to you, and see where it goes.
Great. And then I wanted to switch back to the individuals one more time because again, your book Soulful and the thought of you, the individual listening to this podcast, your future in the age of artificial intelligence, I think is still an interesting question. I think we're learning that we're getting past that fear of, oh, AI is going to take my job and we can just automate everything. AI is not ready for that. People are not ready for that. Organizations are not ready for that. The part I always bring up when that conversation comes up is I've never met a business owner that's like, oh, I want the exact same output, but for less money. Like, if they can do it faster and cheaper, they will, but that just means they're going to do more. So they don't lay people off and be like, we got it all covered. We're good. They're like, no, if we can make our people do 10 times as much, let's go for 10 times as much, not the same with a tenth of the people. So it tends to create more jobs or more work, and it can create a frantic pace. I hear a lot of people getting AI burnout these days already, or moving so fast that humans can't keep up with it. What's your take on where the human workforce assets, challenges, and position in the economy of the future is?
Yeah, so I think we are in an interesting phase. We're going through this transition. I think in the short term, we will see some level of disruption. Some tasks will be automated, some jobs will be replaced. I don't know that we'll see massive unemployment in the short term. Now, in the long term, it is possible that AI will automate any task that can be algorithmic in nature. And those are the tasks that you perform by just following a set of instructions, especially if it's digital work. Anything that's digital in nature is prime for AI being able to address those requirements. Now, if it's manual labor, that's a lot more difficult because we are nowhere near having humanoid robots that
They're
can
working on it.
perform.
They're
Well,
still
they're
pretty
working
slow
on
and
it.
pretty shaky. Yeah.
So the trick is, how do you get those robots to perform well in unknown environments? So if they're not familiar with the environment, it is quite a difficult task for that robot to adapt and to understand the environment and to perform well in that environment. That's where I think we're still a long ways to get to that point. So people that are in the trades, we talk about, installing roofs, right? I think will be a while before we see robots installing roofs. Whether you are a plumber, electrician, or any trade kind of activity, I think will be safe for a long time to come. Now, it's impossible to predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen 30, 40, 50 years from now. But I think in the short term, there will be some tasks that will be replaced by AI. I think we as humans, we're so creative, innovative. I think we'll find other ways to add value. And I think the key is for us to learn how to collaborate with these machines, lean in, learn all you can about AI, and then bring your human capability to the task, right? So if you think about sales, for example, sales is a trust based activity, right? Especially when you're talking about enterprise sales. Enterprise sales, you close deals by building a relationship with your customer and building that trust. AI is not going to build trust, right? This is by nature, it's a human capability. So anything that requires empathy, that requires trust, that requires that human to human engagement, I think will continue to be very valuable skills to have and promising careers.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. And that's where I was going to go next is kind of what do you think sales and marketing looks like in the next 5 to 7 years? Again, I see this misconception of sort of two camps, the yin and the yang of our right brain and left brain, where it's like we're either going to automate everything and marketing is going to get all measured and we're finally going to be able to measure everything and know everything there is to know with our algorithms. And then other people saying, especially on the sales side, it's never, AI is not ever going to get there. I'm always going to have a human role, a human purpose here. And I think both things are wrong. For me, it's the collaboration between the two. And when do you apply the right thing at the right job? But I'm really curious about your take because I think in the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to see an over optimization to measuring everything. Like, oh, if AI can do it, if we can have AI write our ads on the fly and customize these things and it gets a little bump of 3% in our click through rate or something, then great, we'll call that a win and everybody will start doing it. But what I think people miss is what about the 300 or the 3,000% increase because you came up with a really inspired, soulful idea that connected with humans and you didn't optimize the crap out of a campaign to the lowest common denominator. You created something that broke all the boxes and all the rules. I think we're going to continue to see both, but I think in the short term, I really see people over indexing. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think optimization only takes you so far. If you really want to be disruptive, you need to be creative. You need to come up with innovative ways of doing things, things that other people can't copy very easily. So I agree with you from that standpoint. Now, the other thing that I think is interesting that I think we're going to see more and more of marketing is this idea of hyper personalization. So
Mm.
we're going to be able to really focus on an individual and be able to address specific requirements, the specific needs of that one individual, and provide specialized products, services that fit that one micro segment, if you will, of marketing. So I think that's going to be an interesting aspect of it. And then the other point is what we already touched on. The human element will continue to be important in sales. I built my career managing enterprise systems, so I did a lot of CRM implementations, which had a lot of value, but it also put a lot of extra work on salespeople's time because they had to catalog everything and categorize everything and work the system. And if they're spending all the time working the system, they're not spending time face to face with customers, and that's an issue. So I think what AI will be able to do for us is automate the things that the salespeople don't want to do in the first place. It's keeping the CRM system up to date while the salesperson is out there in the field, meeting with humans face to face, building trust, building relationships. I think that's the future for the collaboration on the sales and marketing side of things.
Yeah, I like that. Nobody ever got into sales because they were wanting to fill out a CRM and spreadsheets.
Right.
for a living. So that'll
Yeah,
be helpful for sure.
yeah.
And then my last one for you was just where you see this playing out within our lifetimes, the next 30 years or so. What sci-fi movie do you think it has most nailed it so far?
Yeah, it's so hard, Mike, to predict what's going to happen in 30 years because this is changing so fast. This is unprecedented. Just the level, the depth of the change and speed of the change is just unprecedented. So we're talking about exponential growth, and we tend to think linearly, and we're trying to project in linear growth, but it's very difficult to think exponentially. So I don't know what's going to happen 30 years from now, but I can tell you what I hope for. I hope that AI will do all the things that we don't want to do, all the tasks that we don't enjoy doing, so that we can then focus our time on doing the things that we like, doing the things that we enjoy. I think work will always be part of the human nature because work can be very enjoyable depending on what kind of work you're doing. So I think we're always going to seek new ways to be innovative, to do work, but it doesn't have to be the work that you don't enjoy. Let AI do that kind of work, and we can focus on the things that bring us fulfillment, that brings us joy. So that's the future that I'm hoping for. Now, I also have some concerns. I think there are a lot of ethical questions that we need to address. I don't know that we are prepared as a society to deal with these ethical issues. Worry about this technology getting in the wrong hands. I worry about the proliferation of automated weapons and so on and so forth. So there are some concerns in the future, but I like to be optimistic. So I hope that AI is actually going to bring abundance that will be able to produce more sustainable needs that will fulfill our material needs and be able to provide a better future for all of humanity. And I hope we find a way to distribute that in such a way that doesn't benefit just the elite, it benefits all of us. So that's what I hope for.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about that too. And I hope the abundance we're talking about gets filtered out to everybody. And I think that's a great way and a great place to end on. So we've been talking to David Espindola. You can find him at davidespindola.com or the company for AI advisory. Brainius is at brainy with a Y, US, brainius.com. And the book, don't forget it, Soulful, You in the Future of Artificial Intelligence. You can find that on Amazon and check it out at the websites as well. David is a good follow. And the podcast, we almost forgot to mention Conversations with Xena, his AI colleague, is available wherever you're watching or listening to this. You can find the Mike Montague episode that came out in October. I highly recommend that one. And as far as Avenue 9 goes, we're helping people figure this out for specifically their marketing. How can you do the work to be a creator and have more human conversations and to increase connections rather than depersonalize and automate your marketing? If that sounds fun, go to avenue9.com. David, anything else you would add? Anything we can do to help you or you can do to help us?
No, I appreciate all the work that you're doing. I think it's great that we're having these conversations. I think we as a society need to have more of these conversations. We need to figure out together how to put the right guardrails around AI, how to figure out how we can bring the benefits of AI and yet provide the safety nets that people need. So I think it's important to have these conversations. I appreciate all the work that you do.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Share this episode with somebody that you think needs to hear it. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and keep going. Have fun with it, everybody. Bye.